President Trump tweeted out that he was under investigation, but his own lawyer just went on every network to say he's not. So what's going on? We will try to get to the bottom of it. Then how a skyscraper on Fifth Avenue and Jared Kushner's involvement with it could also become part of the Russia probe. And it's coming down to the wire in Albany with the legislative session set to end on Wednesday. That is making tempers flare. As Governor Cuomo and lawmakers try to wrap things up, we will fill you in on what they're fighting about. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. If the investigation into the Trump-Russia mess were a Hollywood movie, we'd be at the part where we focus in on the legal teams. The montage, usually under music, showing both teams hard at work with their sleeves rolled up. The preparation before the big courtroom action scenes. Not the most exciting part of the movie, but it is the one that sets up the big climactic showdown. But there is still a lot we can learn as the lawyers take their turn in the spotlight, and there has been more developing on that plot today. We'll start with the president's legal team. And remember all that talk about how the President Trump, and the White House couldn't find any experienced personnel, any lawyers with Washington experience to take the president's case? Well, that has now changed. According to reports late Friday, the president has added John Dowd to his legal team. Dowd has played a role in a number of big stories and cases in the past 4 decades, some based in D.C., some not. Dowd represented several members of the military during the Iran-Contra hearings, though he did not represent Oliver North. Dowd also represented John McCain, who as senator was named one of the Keating Five. 5 senators accused of acting improperly on behalf of banker Charles Keating during a federal investigation into the failed savings and loan that Keating ran. 3 of the 5 senators accused in the case were found to have acted improperly by the Senate Ethics Committee. McCain and John Glenn were cleared of any wrongdoing. Dowd's best-known case may have been as the man who led Major League Baseball's investigation into Pete Rose and gambling. His report on the case, the Dowd Report, tracked Rose's gambling habits, his bank records, and more. Dowd's conclusion that Rose bet on baseball led to his banishment from the game. Dowd also concluded that Rose bet on Cincinnati Reds games while managing the team. That conclusion wasn't proven at the time, but Rose confirmed it in a book 15 years later. Dowd joining the Trump legal team the same weekend another Trump attorney had a little bit of difficulty defending his client. And once again, it was a Trump tweet causing all the headaches. After reports last week that special counsel Robert Mueller was investigating the president for possible obstruction of justice, the president seemed to confirm those reports Friday morning, tweeting, "I'm being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director." Witch hunt. That also means lots of questions Sunday for Trump attorney Jay Sekulow about the president's tweet. Those interviews, let's just say they didn't go over all that well.
The president is not and has not been under investigation.
How do you know?
Because we've received no notice of investigation. And now he's being investigated by the Department of Justice.
You've now said that he is being investigated after saying that you didn't.
No.
You just said,
no, he's
sir,
not being investigated.
you just said that he's being investigated.
I do not appreciate you putting words in my mouth when I've been crystal clear that the president is not and has not been under investigation. I don't think I could be any clearer than that.
Well, you don't know that he's not under investigation again, sir. I mean,
I cannot read the mind. You're right, Chris. I can't read the mind of the special prosecutor.
So we're in agreement.
But y'all heard him say that he was under investigation at the beginning of that, right? Okay. Meanwhile, no TV appearances this weekend for the growing number of lawyers now working on the other side of this case. That's for special counsel Robert Mueller. But we're getting a better sense of who Mueller is hiring and what expertise those people bring to the team. Among those on Mueller's team, the head of the Justice Department's criminal fraud unit. Andrew Whitman is also an expert on fraud and foreign bribery. He's prosecuted mafia cases and is especially touted for 2 skills: following the money in complicated financial cases and flipping witnesses, getting smaller fish to turn on bigger fish. Also on the team, a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General with a background in criminal law and procedure and dealing with thorny executive issues. A special prosecutor who worked on Watergate. A former FBI Chief of Staff with a background in counterterrorism who investigated al-Qaeda before 9/11. And the nation's Deputy Solicitor General, who's one of the top criminal law experts in the nation and has argued more than 100 cases before the Supreme Court, which puts him in an exclusive club in legal circles. For analysis, let's get to our panel. Michael Tobman is back with us tonight. He is an independent political consultant. Welcome back.
I missed you.
To his left, Dominic Carter, who has not missed us, political journalist and author. And on the other side of the table, Phil Reisman. He's a radio talk show host on WVOX. Before that, he was a journal news columnist and an overall good guy. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here. So just with the way everybody's lawyered up, if you had to bet money on this thing right now, where you think the Mueller's team looks like they're doing a better job of lawyering up, Michael, or you think the president's doing okay?
Oh, clearly the special prosecutor and investigation team is doing a better job lawyering up because they're going about it in a methodical, thoughtful, careful way, bringing in qualified people. I was chatting with my father-in-law this past weekend. He's a defense attorney of some reputation. And he said, how could the president have found his way to the lawyer he found? And the answer is probably through McCain circles, as you outlined in your very thorough opening. The president is out of his depth in this particular situation, and the question is who he's reaching out to get these experienced hands, because these are people and relationships he's spurned up until now. But for sure, the investigation's doing a better job.
What's your sense, Phil?
Well, my first question is, how much are these guys getting paid? Mm-hmm. And how much is the taxpayers paying for Trump's lawyers and these on the investigative side?
So you already know the answer to that.
It's
lots and lots of money.
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. I thought Jacoby and Myers would be good enough for Trump. And it's the way he's taking advice from these guys, you might as well have Jacoby and Myers, you know?
Well, Celino and Barnes, but I heard they're breaking up.
That's right.
There's been a split there.
Right.
Dominic, it seems like up until now the White House hasn't been taking this all that seriously, just trying to play this in the court of public opinion. With the hiring of Dowd and the sort of calcification of their arguments, the White House isn't handling anything, they're sending it all to the outside lawyers. Do you think at the very least the White House is beginning to take this as the serious potential threat to the presidency that it is?
Key word, Andrew, you just said serious. And I think that the president is finally developing an ability to accept the fact that this is reality. This is not The Apprentice, where he can play and fake his way out of this or fake his way to the top. Clearly, I agree with you. The special prosecutor, they are winning the battle as of right now because he is bringing in experts at handling fraud. Follow the money. Right. So the president, something very simple, Andrew, that I think applies to his case, especially with his Twitter account. Think before you act. Because when he just tweets, he's playing to his millions of followers, you know, witch hunt. I'm under investigation by the guy that told me.
He wasn't doing that Friday. He was sort of unchained again on
Right,
Friday.
but what I'm saying is, okay, when you jump out there the way the president did, his lawyers that are probably making $1,000 an hour, they've got to go on TV. You think that attorney went on TV yesterday for free? Or do you think those are billable hours?
Probably billable.
Believe me, those are billable hours. And so the attorney's got to walk all of those tweets back.
No, but I could see going up on appeal, all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, whether or not the president's tweets through his campaign account can be considered as evidence of official state actions, and the White House losing that appeal. So this is going to be very interesting.
Every time he tweets, he sends them in another direction. And they have the advantage, and that is that they're just investigating. They can go down any path they want, and Trump's lawyers are going to have to react. Mm-hmm. They're always in a reactive mode. They're in a reactive mode to what the investigation is leading them, and they're reacting to what Trump does on his own, unilaterally, without any restraint, it seems.
His tweets and his statements are already part of the lawsuits related to the travel ban,
Correct.
And that's headed to the Supreme Court. So we're probably going to get a ruling on that one way or another, whether the things he says during the campaign or on Twitter or in a speech or whatever can actually be used against him. I have a question about that attorney for Trump who made the rounds and did the full media tour yesterday. Phil, it almost doesn't matter if the president's under investigation right this second, because if he's not, we'll find out at some point whether he is or he's not. Why do you think they made such a big deal out of trying to tamp that down, that they don't think he's under investigation?
Well, what's weird about it is that he's the first of all, it's this notion that he can just say something like that and it doesn't really mean what you think it means. This is a real pattern with Trump. But also, even if you accept this, the tweet itself doesn't make any sense, because he's the one that basically wanted to fire Comey in the first place, and Rosenstein wrote the memo that gave him the cover to do it, you know? And then do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, after Comey is fired, he says, well, it has to do with the heat's off now in the Russian investigation, so he blew his own cover. So it just doesn't make any real sense.
It really does. Yeah. I mean, Michael, my first reaction when I saw the attorney yesterday was, this is just Trump not wanting to admit for a second that he's in a bad light.
This is clearly under the president's personal direction. The same way when Spicer's giving a briefing and his deputy comes out with a note, it's the president saying, say this. But I remember reading an interview with a Hollywood accountant, and he says his client, stars, call up and say, I want to buy another house. He says, you don't have the money, don't buy another house. And the star keeps calling people until he finds someone who says, yeah, go ahead, I'll just book you on another movie. So he reaches his agent. Here's the president. He's going to talk to 3 lawyers, and then he's going to say, don't do this, until he finally someone says, yeah, I'll go on TV and say this for you. He says, great, do that. Here's what you should say. Because if he spoke to Dowd, he spoke to any other criminal lawyer worth their salt, they'd say, don't talk.
The president has a problem, Andrew, of understanding.
Just one?
Thank you. I'm trying to be diplomatic. Of understanding who he's communicating with. On Twitter, he's trying to reach the American people and backdoor route the media to spin the narrative. But he has to understand there are seasoned, very seasoned prosecutors looking at every word, every syllable that comes out of his mouth. And these guys are good at what they do. As a matter of fact, one can make a case that they're the very best at what they do. So the president needs, your point about the lawyers, and you're right. Mr. President, don't do it. Mr. President, don't do it. Mr. President, don't do it. Will you say I can do it? Yeah, okay, I'm going with you. That's exactly what's happening.
Final topic very quickly on a slightly different point. Tomorrow is the Georgia 6th special election between Karen Handel and John Ossoff. That's the one that went to a runoff election. The latest polls have this as a slight lead for Ossoff, who's the Democrat in this race. There you see the very latest numbers, but this is by all accounts a toss-up. Michael, everybody's going to claim victory depending on what the results are tomorrow. If Handel holds on, Republicans are going to say, look, the Democratic wave isn't as big as we thought it might be. If Ossoff wins, I'm sure the White House will come back and say, well, he was up huge in early. I mean, my sense of this is that the Democrats have already won, even if they don't win this seat, just because there was like a 16-point gap for them in the last election. How much of a barometer is this of where Donald Trump is right now?
The strongest predictor of how people vote in general elections is party affiliation and party registration. So they have an edge, like with the Scotland campaign to leave the UK, and like the UK vote to stay or go in the EU. People are just going to keep their counsel to themselves because they don't want to offend their neighbors, and they're going to lie to pollsters. And I think party registration generally trumps these things.
Sounds like you're saying we shouldn't read as much into the results tomorrow as we probably will.
I think on either side. But again, congressional districts are gerrymandered over a course now of decades, generations. Very few swing states. But I would point out the UK and France have had federal elections restructuring their entire government in less time than it took us to do this runoff.
But here's what you can read out of that special election in Georgia. The president did not, so this is where Democrats, no matter what happened, can claim victory. It's a referendum on him, on President Trump, no matter how you slice this. But if you're a popular incumbent, you would be the lead person down there campaigning for your person. The president has not been there once on the Republican candidate's behalf.
The president also misspelled the Republican candidate's last name in a tweet today that he later deleted. I don't know why that's of interest to me. I just feel like reporting it. That is par for the course.
But Ossoff is a centrist, too. So if he does well and if he wins, this is going to be a model for all the Democrats running in 2018.
In conservative districts. I mean,
a
guy with that platform wouldn't win in New York
but I
City
think I think that this is...
Democrats have to get comfortable running candidates like that again.
Yeah.
That's not where the energy is in the party.
I don't think but I don't think the Sanders people this isn't going to be good news for them. I really don't think it is.
This no doubt will be the conversation Wednesday, Thursday, and in the days afterwards. We'll take our first break. When we come back, investigators are following the money in the Russia probe. Does any Russian money lead back to first son-in-law Jared Kushner and his family's real estate empire? That is the question a lot of people are asking.